Hello, welcome to the 23rd day of July 2025. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation. This is something that I do every day at about 5:30 a.m. here in Japan to remember my life's objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone. You can read Going Alone at goingalone.org for free. Members on Patreon can get a PDF copy, download for free. I also use the time to think about yesterday and tease out any interesting moments where I made good utilization of my creed, either the principles that I use to live well or the objectives that I'm striving to achieve. I reflect on the creed, I'll mention the 8 objectives and one of the principles, and then I'll talk about what I'm going to do today. But before any of that, welcome to new subscribers to the channel. It's good to have you here. A quick note that this is a personal journal video, so I will talk about my own self and my own life. Forgive me if it seems like I'm carrying on about myself. That's the purpose of this video. You're welcome to watch. You're welcome to leave comments. I don't typically read or respond to comments until the end. All right, let's get started. First, last night and yesterday. Slept good last night. It was a really hot night. Yesterday, I think, was definitely the hottest and most humid day yet. It kind of took a little bit out of me, and knocked me out a little bit by the end of the day yesterday. I was, mentioning, maybe bragging a little bit in the last 48 hours that in this video that I've been feeling really good, powerful, some vitality has returned. Well, life kind of, showed me the other side yesterday. I was out of doors for a good portion of the day yesterday. I made an impulsive decision to do some weeding at midday, which was an interesting decision. I think that was the thing that really pushed me over and set me up for a fall. I'd been meaning to weed the front yard, so to speak. It's really more like a car park area. Only that the car has been in the way, and I was going to move the car into a position so I could easily access the weeds. Yesterday, just before I headed downtown to meet a friend and his family, I noticed that Yumiko, who had headed out to do some stuff, since she took the car, she left the car park area free. So my chance. So not even changing my clothes, just grabbing a pair of gloves, I went and I did the whole area. I weeded the whole area around where the car was, taking advantage of the fact that the car was gone, all the while knowing that I was setting myself up for a fall. I still had a full day of it really was a foolish thing to do, impulsive thing to do. And I knew it in the moment, yet I did it anyway. Did a good job. And I got through the rest of the day, but I'm not quite the same now. I'm wiped out. I was wiped out yesterday evening. In fact, during the dog walk, we had elected to take the long course, and about halfway through, Yumiko, who was walking ahead with Yoko, stopped and waited for me to catch up because my dog Rudy's a little slow, and I don't know how she gained this because I was far away, and she just said, "Are you feeling okay?" And she said, I said, "No, I'm wiped out." She said, "Maybe it's better you turn back." So I did. I turned back, drew the bath myself, took a bath, and went to bed. But I woke up not feeling much better. None of this is new. Zero of this is new. The fact that I'm susceptible to getting wiped out, the fact that I sometimes let my interests override my better judgment, the fact that I conceal the consequences, the fact that my wife spots that and calls me out, the fact that I then linger I suffer the consequences for an extended period of time, maybe into the next day and the day beyond that. All of these things are oft experienced, revisited, I know this part of myself very well. I guess I allow it to, in a way. It's like it feels exactly the way you might feel if you had, for example, come into the office, you're dieting well, you're eating really, really well, and you come into the office and walk past or walk through the break room or the kitchen area, and some generous, kind coworker has brought along a dozen or 2 dozen donuts and put them out with the lids open, the little paper plates and napkins, and the coffee is freshly brewed. We've all been in, anybody that works in that type of a situation has probably been in that kind of situation. And in almost every case, very, very rare that I'll project my thoughts or my dilemmas or my considerations onto anyone else. But I bet you just about anybody who's watching this has been in exactly that situation where you're marching along doing good, and then suddenly there's donuts in the break room, and the person that brought the donuts is standing right there, eager for you to accept their generosity. What are you going to do? You're going to take a donut. You'll grab a cup of coffee. You'll go back to your cube, and either one of two things will happen. You'll consume it happily and gladly right there as you start your day, or you'll have it 2 or 3 bites, and then you'll wrap it up in a napkin on a paper plate, and you'll put it aside and say, I won't eat the rest of it, or I'll eat it in the afternoon. You'll eat the rest of it. It'll all be gone. You're finished. That's exactly what this periodically reoccurring overindulgence that I do is like. Instead of it being a donut in the break room, it was suddenly discovering that my wife had, by virtue of the fact of driving off to do something, had left the car park area perfectly clear for weeding. My gloves were literally sitting right there. My weeding tool was sitting right there. Have a donut. And just like the donut, the next morning you can feel a little bulge in your waistline. Maybe you got a little bit of a sugar calorie rush and crash in the afternoon as a result, or later in the morning if you ate the whole thing in the morning. This isn't the type of thing that raises an alarm that says, okay, now I need to think about a dangerous hornet right there. That's the dangerous one. There it goes. So there's it's not the Asian giant hornet. That was a hornet called Ashinaga, the long-legged hornet, which is dangerous this time. It's much smaller than the giant, but they're dangerous this time of the year because they're a little bit aggressive, and they've got their nests in peculiar places. They can take you by surprise. So the thing is, anyone that's been in that situation, okay, let's say, for example, we have an incident that happens where we have a few drinks and we drive home. And the next day we realize what we've done. We didn't hurt anybody. I'll bet you just about any reasonable person, if that has ever happened to anybody, immediately puts into place a project to ensure that that doesn't happen. That's an event, a one-off that cannot be tolerated to happen again, and steps will be taken by any sane and sober and reasonable man or woman to make sure that that never happens again. That's the kind of mistake that can't be repeated. How do I know that? I did that. So shortly after getting my driver's license, I went to a 16, and I was like 16 and a quarter years old. Went to a high school party, got drunk, drove home. Next morning, woke up, realized what I had done, how I had gotten home, and immediately put into place an architecture of life to make sure that that never happened again. And that architecture, the framework, what that looked like was, I never again in high school attended another party, home party. Specifically, and it kind of spoiled and soiled a good portion of my high school socializing. But I was horrified by the fact of what I had done, and I put a gross and overarching steps to make sure that it never happened again. What happened yesterday? No such project is necessary. If I have a donut in the break room coming into work, and I eat it and I feel like crap for the remainder of the day, and I feel a little bit fat tomorrow, no project is necessary. It's the kind of thing that happens once in a while. Likewise with yesterday. So I weeded the yard, and that was probably around 11 o'clock. The heat was really coming on under the full sun. The yard came out looking good. I don't feel good as a result. It wasn't the dangerous type of, I didn't like, weed so much that I was in danger of heat stroke. I just overdid it. So there's that. And I think this is interesting. I'm glad that my self-talk this morning went this direction, because now I'm seeing that there are, you can do a little bit of triage in terms of the events that happen in life. Some life events require extraordinary life events require extraordinary responses, like the drunk driving thing. More mundane and average disappointments, maybe. Could I call it that? See, what it was let's break it down a little further, because that's what the purpose of this video is. The purpose of the video is not to tell stories. It's to look at what happens and see how I did relative to my values. I was fully aware of what I was doing. I knew that I was making a mistake. I knew that I might suffer the consequences, yet I yielded to the opportunity to weed the front yard while the chimney was gone. This is a matter of me taking a decided risk, knowing the consequences, and making that anyway. If I was a project manager, this would be no different, in fact, than, as part of my job as an IT project manager, was to identify, assess, analyze risks, present them to the project sponsor, and let the project sponsor make a decision. Sometimes the project sponsor made the risky decision. Sometimes you can do 4 things with a risk. You can mitigate it, do something about it. You can avoid it. You can leverage it into something good, which is the rarest of the things, or you can accept it. And there have been plenty of times that my project sponsors, I've said, hey, we've identified a new risk. Here are the potential consequences. Here's the benefit. Here's the potential consequences. If there's a way to leverage it into something good, here's how that could be done. Sometimes there is nothing you can do, but you could avoid it. You could, mitigate it in some way. I've had plenty of sponsors that say, we'll just accept it. Thanks for letting me know, Kurt, that might happen. I accept it. Now, as a project manager, I've done my job, and I keep the documentation. So if that risk comes to fruition, the consequence is achieved, the negative consequence that I warned of in my risk report, no one can point fingers at me and say I didn't point it out. I certainly did, and I gave it to the sponsor to make the decision. They took that executive action, and the best sponsors best executives and managers I've ever worked with are the ones that will accept that responsibility and say, yeah, I made that decision. Yeah. And sometimes they'll even say, like, I'd make it again. That was me. It was exactly what happened, but I was my own risk. I was my own analyst and sponsor yesterday. I analyzed the situation. I said, here's an opportunity. The risk is that you might suffer a bit of heat exhaustion and not feel good for 48 hours. I gave that to the executive sponsor, another layer up in my mental apparatus. And that executive sponsor said, I see your risk report, and I choose to accept this risk. Get those weeding gloves on and get to work. It's not something that needs to be fixed. Sure, maybe it wasn't the right decision, but that is a mature way to live. Spot the problem, analyze the problem, assess it, weigh the consequences, and then make an executive decision, self-guided executive decision. So I have nothing, even though I'm suffering the consequences now, I have nothing to complain about. I have nothing to fix from yesterday. I feel like crap. I knew I'd feel like crap. I decided that to continue on the path that would lead me to feeling like crap. Good job, Kurt. Job well done. You knew this would happen. Okay, that isn't even what I have on my list. What I typically do is I go over the last 24 hours and the things, like I said before, that are noteworthy for challenges. This is more of an atmospheric observation. Ooh, I can see there's a little mosquito. Let me fire up the mosquito repellent coil. I don't think I've showed you this. I've been waiting to find one at the antiques. I go antique shopping every weekend. This is a Japanese Katorisenko burner in the shape of a pig, and it's got this big orifice in the back here where I can light the mosquito repellent coil. Here we go. This is the coil, and I can just light it like this, and it'll create a little cloud of cloying. It's a natural plant-based substance that mosquitoes don't like. It actually is kind of a poison to them, so they kind of just repels them away. You just have to kind of get it started there, and then blow it out, and it makes this smoke. And then what you do is you put it inside without burning yourself. Ooh, like I said, without burning yourself. I tend to burn myself. There we go. And you see how it hangs in there? The smoke. And I'll just put it down here. It's a very, very Japanese thing to do. And I'll just put it right there. And you might see the smoky vapors rising around me. Okay. All right. So the thing I did want to have a note here was glimpses of another world. So over the last 4 or 5 days, I had a glimpse of 2 worlds that I once knew. Let me refill my water here. Now I know what it is. Lately, the last couple of weeks, I've been having these moments where I'm making these videos, and I get kind of caught up in my throat, which is just happening now. It's that smoke doing it to me. That chemical doesn't, it affects arthropods. And so it's not a poison to humans that I'm aware of, but it seems to cause me to have a frog in my throat. And so I'll refill my water cup here. Take a drink as needed. Back to the point. In the last 48 hours, I've had a glimpse of 2 worlds that I once was a active, more engaged participant in. The first was the working world. The second was the parenting world. So far as the working world, our daughter Emily, and her boyfriend Tatsuya came down and spent the weekend with us, and they brought, if not their work with them, the cloud. You know, when you're in the working world, there's this invisible cloud of thought and distraction that you carry around with you everywhere, and weighs on you, and then it becomes dark, like thunderstorm, about Sunday afternoon. Because if you're working on Monday, going back to work on Monday, Sunday afternoon, the clouds begin to darken and threaten rain, and the thoughts begin to come, and you're thinking about what you have to do on Monday and all that stuff. I got to witness all of that yesterday with my daughter and her boyfriend, and it was very interesting. Nothing extraordinary. Both of them are simply now immersed in doves. They're now immersed in that workaday world, And they carried it from Tokyo down here, and I could see them thinking about it. And what's more, they actually talked about it, um, you know, shared it with me. And it was like being, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe this. It's like being a sailor. You know what it is? It's like being an old sailor, me being an old sailor who doesn't, maybe an old whaler, you know, thinking of Moby Dick, who has gone on, you know, 5 or 6, 3 or 4 year voyages whaling in the 7 seas. And now they're an old whaler, and they're living at the old folks whaling home in Nantucket. Say 18, maybe it's 1852. And a ship has recently come in from a 3-year voyage, and a couple of young sailors are fresh off a harpooner, and maybe the second mate are taking up lodging at the sailor's home, you know, an inn by the shore where this old man lives. And he's sitting at breakfast the next morning, and the 2 sailors are there, and they're going to head right back out again. The next week they're going to, and this does happen. The sailors would come right in and head right back out on another 3-year voyage. And the sailors, the younger sailors, are talking about their relief that they've got. They're on shore for a short period of time, but the whole cloud of the sailing thing, that whole life, and then the weight of what's coming, going back out in another week, is on their mind. And you're the old sailor just sitting there eating your porridge and taking it all in. That's how I felt. I felt like an old worker watching my grown daughter and her boyfriend talking about their working lives. It's a spectator sport. I wouldn't say that it was the type of thing where I'm eating popcorn, but if it was more like looking at it a little bit in awe, because I'm 7 months into retirement, and I've kind of forgotten that weight, that great weight, the cloud of work. The second part, remember, this is the note here, is glimpses of another world. Yesterday, an old friend and coworker from more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago, something like that, from the mid-90s, maybe closing in on 30 years now. He and I were coworkers for a time. And he came to visit me 20 years ago, and he and I went hiking in Japan. So he's been here before, but now he brought his family. He's in Japan with his family. And I spent I spent a half day downtown Shizuoka with them. Kids are high school age and going off to college age, and elementary school age. And I got to glimpse that active parenting experience as well, which was, and I won't give any details because that's preserve their privacy, but that's a whole other thing as well. You know, the hard work of taking care of a young adult, you know, a young girl on the cusp of heading off to college and adulthood, and then a child. I saw that too. And I could just substitute the same thing about the sailor and say, instead of being whaling crew, parenting crew, right? That was interesting. I realized also how I've lost my edge. I don't know that I could do that. I don't even know how well I'd be at grandparenting. I'm sure I'd pick it up, but you know, I don't know how some grandparents do it. I guess you adapt to everything, right? You know, that's stepping into another life, maybe to come, maybe not to come. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I know that so many people describe the grandparenting years as some of the best years of their lives, and I look forward to experiencing that if it happens. All right, that's that for that. Let's go over the creed. My creed consists of 8 objectives and 35 principles. Again, you can read about them in Going Alone, in the chapter titled The Good Life, at goingalone.org. My 8 objectives are, I'm going to go quickly through them because #wiped out. If you don't know what I'm talking about, see the first part of this video. Number 1 is to be always ready to die. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions. Number 5 is to perform good actions. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunities. 7 is to do just one thing at a time and do the thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. And 8 is to keep my balance. And I'm going to read a principle now. Yesterday I read the social principle. Today I'll read the principle of family, the sub-principle catalyst. The principle of family. Our people make up the context of our lives in terms of purpose, obligation, mission, feedback, support, and ultimately the best and most intangible part of being alive. We begin with the people to whom we are born, the chance family which we gain by accident of birth. We grow then with the family we later decide, our friends and our partners, and our spouse and the children we in turn together make. From these we gain our decided mission and our direction and the guidance forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, till death or very good cause do us part. Without this connection and circumstance, we can still live a rich and meaningful life, though the way may be harder at times as we strive with less mandate, catalyst perhaps, to compel us through thick and thin, less necessity to push us out the door to our jobs on days when we'd rather not, and through many years and decades of hard work, sacrifice, and giving, the very selfless endeavors which yield virtue from the dawning chaos of our lives, rising and falling, and one day utterly failing. And if, once dead, we've left behind the fact and echo of our virtuous living within the family, in quotation marks, we formed and supported and maintained, then our life will hardly have been lived in vain, even if everything is eventually one day in vain. All right, for today, I have 2 orders that I need to ship. I'll get those out today, and that's all I've got planned. I think I'm going to try to take it a little bit slow today, try to recover. Let's go through comments. Hi, Tim. Good morning. Same for me yesterday, Kurt. Humid, warm day. Did an extended walk, which felt just hot, felt great until late afternoon, and then suddenly felt all life had been suddenly sucked out. I'm sorry that that happened to you, although I'm grateful for the commiseration, Tim. You know, misery loves company, right? Let's both take it easy today, or I know you're about to go to sleep, and let's see if we can recover in the next 24 hours. That stamina of youth easily leaves you these days. Yeah, it sure does. Sure does. That and just, between you and me, Tim, I mean, flabbiness, I work out, the muscle tone is gone, and it makes me wonder what's going on up here with the muscle tone up here, right? Ironically, the big push in retirement is fitness, but at times it feels counterproductive, battling the aging body, which is less reluctant to recover. Yeah, it does. Isn't it funny? It's like suddenly I used to feel like I could climb mountains easily. Now I feel like I've got a weighted pack, or better yet, Sisyphus, pushing the stone up the mountain now, right? I mean, I don't know how much longer I want to keep that up. I don't want to devolve into a couch potato, but you and I, I'm preaching to the choir here. Hi, Robert. Tim says hi to Robert. Hi, Michael. Michael says hi. Robert says hi to Michael. Crystal, hi, Crystal. Is it like citronella? It's something like that. It's a chemical that starts with a C. You're referring to the chemical in the Cultivate. It's derived from some plant that the mosquitoes hate. You don't even have to burn it. You can literally just, take a little bucket of water and drop one of those things in the water, and somehow the essence of it kind of comes out from the water as well. Not as powerful nor as effective, but it works really well too. The mosquitoes hate it. They'll fly right away. Robert remembers Cultivate coils. Robert says hi to Crystal. Crystal says hi, guys. Crystal says, I'm glad I caught this live. It's nearly 2 p.m. and I'm starting my work. nice to have things just going in the background. I'm glad. I'm glad. Isn't the sound amazing? The cicadas. And you know what I'm hearing? There's a special type of high mountain cicada that you only hear. I thought you only heard on really high elevations. I can hear it. Not now. What you're hearing right now is that very. I overuse this word, but it applies. It's this cloying cicada. The reason I call it cloying is the sound is this incessant whirring that is pleasant and very Japan, but at times can be cloying. But then there's this very subtle and soft cicada that comes out in evening as the sun goes down in the high altitudes, and sometimes in the morning. And I heard it this morning, right out there. Can't hear it now though. Hi Evelyn. Hello to you. She says hello to fellow listeners. Hello, and Robert says hi to Evelyn. Tim says, funny, I had lunch with my old work colleagues back in April, and it felt a little surreal to suddenly be back in that work bubble where all the chat was about work issues, stresses, etc. I've had a little bit of that experience as well, talking with coworkers from my old life, and I know exactly the same thing. Doesn't it feel, Tim, a little like, I'm just going to try to throw this out there. You know how when sometimes, I've never been a gym bro, but I picture gym bros who go there and they're like 3 to 4 big buff guys, and they're taking turns at the bench press, right? One does it and the two guys are spotting, and then maybe I'm off on my thing here, and then they change the weights for the next guy, and he does his best, and then it comes around to your turn, and I got nothing. It's like I can barely do the bar anymore. That's it. When I get together and I talk with my coworkers, that's what it feels like. I'm like, man, I'm glad you guys are dealing with all the problems you're describing, because I don't know how to deal with any of these things anymore. Came away thinking, I'm glad I'm out of all that. Exactly, me too. Could you and I both get into it if we had to? I think we could. I think, we'd give ourselves 6 months. We might come back stronger than ever. Come back like after, for you, a 2.5 year break. For me, 7 month break. Who knows what we'd be looking like. Okay, weather check time. For Tim in the UK, it's 15.7 Celsius. Here, it's 27 going on 28 Celsius. And Tim says it's 76% humidity. It's 78% humidity here. So almost the same humidity level for us. Although I got you beat on the temp. Well, you got me beat on the temperature. Who's going to say that closing in on 30 degrees has anybody beat, right? Sounds pretty nice, Tim. Maybe a little chilly even, huh? Actually, sounds really nice. Cloudy where you are. Robert says 25 C, so you're a little warmer. You're just below me, and 39 humidity. So for you, Robert, you're just a little bit cooler than me, but a lot less humid. Sounds actually pretty nice. In Canada, Ontario. It's so relaxing to watch these videos. I can't get enough. Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that. Kim says, yes, exactly that. Wanted to get back to my retirement comfort blanket. That's a good way to describe it, retirement comfort blanket. Crystal says 25 C and 49% humidity. So you got the same temperature as Robert, but you got 10% more humidity where you are in BC, Canada. So we got Canada representing from two parts of that enormous country. Interesting, from Ontario which I believe is in the middle there, right? And then, of course, British Columbia over on the west coast. Interesting. Are you coastal, Crystal? I know that makes a big difference if you're like within the coastal range, and then once you go over the coastal range, it gets a whole other thing. Evelyn says, I agree, Crystal. The good life meditation has become a big part of my life from wherever I am. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. It means a lot to me that some of you choose to join me regularly on doing this. It helps me a lot, because it causes me, as I've said before, to do this, to do a better job and a more thorough job. And especially after all these years, I've learned that the reflections that I offer here are human reflections, right? They're not just, especially because they're less about the anecdotes of my life and more about the challenges and where I'm doing poorly or where I'm doing well. and how I'm striving to improve on every front. And given that, for the most part, those of us that are collected here together are probably of a relatively alike mind in terms of our ideas about what constitutes virtue, these efforts probably resonate for all of us, right? So I'm glad that that's the case. Well, with that, 35 minutes in, I'm going to call it quits. I've managed to get through without, my throat has cleared. I'm going to list, and I'll tell you I'll tell you guys, maybe I'll go in a forward board, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for the antique listing. Immediately after I finish this video, I turn the camera around and I'll list an antique item for my antique store. Today's item is really interesting. I've never seen this before. This is a spool of very special thread used with Japanese farmers' clothes. Hold on, let me show you the fabric just a second. I need to get it out anyway to prepare to do the listing. Maybe you'll find this interesting. Where did I put it? Just a second here. Oh, there it is. Of course I had to put it underneath everything. Okay, so this is another item listed in my store. And this is not, I'm not trying to sell you guys anything. I'm just sharing with you another part of my morning. You see this fabric? This is a very special type of fabric. Not used. Let me show you one more thing. All right. So this is kimono fabric right here. It's called chirimen. It's very old and it's very nice. It's still over 100 years old. This little bundle of fabric, and it will eventually be listed in my store. I found a kimono merchant in downtown Shizuoka, an old woman who has a tiny little store, and she saves old kimonos from going to the incinerator or getting lost or something like that, and repurposes the fabric. Can you believe it? These old kimonos sometimes wind up in the dump. I don't know if that's where she gets them, but she gets them from somewhere. But her mission in life is to save old fabric. And so she bundles these up and she sells these. Now these are very valuable. I mean, these are really hard to make. And they're very valuable for those that are in the know. It's a matter of they have to cross this chasm from being in the attic of some, 45-year-old haggard salaryman's family home after his parents die. And there's been, for 100 years, great-grandmother's kimonos have been up in the attic. And he decides that he's going to sell the land and rebuild the house. Or he's going to tear the house down and build it again. And he hires the demolition crew to come in. The demolition crew don't even go through what's upstairs. They find these boxes that are filled with these kimonos, and they take them straight to the incinerator and burn them all up. So she somehow rescues these things, and then she ties them up and she sells them. And I bought a handful of these rolled kimono fabric, and I'm going to list them in my store. See how they do. They're just beautiful. It is just stunning. It's called chirimen. It's the highest quality kimono fabric out there. Anyway, this is not chirimen. So think of this as for geisha and things like that, and high-end kimonos. This is farmer's clothes. This is a type of a fabric. You see how you can almost see through it? Look at that. That means it's going to be in this hot weather. As a farmer working in the hot sun, they breathe, and it's durable. It's almost like denim, and it's water resistant. It dries really quickly, and mosquitoes can't pinch through it. Beautiful, amazing piece of fabric. Very different in function from this. And this blue color is the color of the farming class in Japan. Remember, Japan has the class structures. The farming class, this blue color would be like a badge of honor, because they're like the third up, the second down from the top, samurai, and then farmers with the two second ones. So be very proud to wear this. Anyway, this is the first time I've ever encountered this. I found this at the flea market this weekend. This is an old bundle of this fabric. Do you see how it has the white color and the blue color together? I've never seen this. This is an original bundle. It's a piece of wood. It's a piece of wood inside, wrapped with washi paper, and then corded up with this kimono fabric. And not kimono fabric, this old farm clothes fabric. So anyway, as soon as I'm done with you guys, I'm going to list this item, do the video to it, and this will wind up in the store. This one's already in the store. This one's not. And I apologize. This is not intended to be a sales video. I'm just sharing with you the excitement about what I do as a vocation, avocation. Let's see if I missed anything else. Oh yes, Crystal's on Vancouver Island, middle of the island, but we have an inlet, so the area looks like yours a bit. Very nice. And I think I remember you telling me a long time ago that you were on Vancouver. I'm sorry I forgot, Crystal. It is gorgeous fabric. Tim says antique kimono fabric and also porcelain Japanese dolls can be very expensive here in the UK. It's amazing stuff. And yeah, well, I'll sign off for today. Thanks everybody for joining me. I hope you all have a great day. Tim, I hope we both are feeling better tomorrow. Get some good rest tonight. Take care, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. You're welcome, Robert. Take care.